Okay, it's time to cut the bell tail. So we have to pull the bell off. We've got this thing completed up until third valve. So I can pop a couple of these braces that we're not using right now off, and then I'm going to take this brace out first. It's one right by the bell tail, and then we'll look at taking the bell off. This is really not hard to do. It's a matter of getting it hot enough, so that's why we got a good torch. That's about all we need, so we don't waste a whole lot of gas. So what I'm going to do is come here, heat this brace up. Top and bottom. Remember, the heat's going to rise in here. I'm just kind of walking it back and forth between the two, and when it's right, it'll come out. No problems whatsoever. Drop that over there to cool. And then this. Popped right off. Heating this. Without setting a towel on fire. Oh, we gotta do a little more on this one. It's a lot of area. Once the heat gets right, it'll pop right on out of there. There it goes. Now we got some cleaning up to do while I have the torch out. So I'm going to turn over this. I'll let it cool for a second, because I'm going to grab the bell. I don't want it to be really hot. So flipping it over, I'll turn it this way so you can see these are the two braces that we have to take loose. And also we have to get this loose right here. So I have to heat this and these two braces on the valve guards. I'm going to do these like I did the whole lead pipe thing, and I'm going to put some upward pressure on the bell till this one kind of pops loose, and then this one pops loose, and then I'll hold it like that for a second, let it cool, and then it'll be easy to get this off. So we're going to start there. There that one went. There that one went. Now I'm just going to hold it there for a second. Let that cool back down so that the solder won't stick anymore. Alright, now I can heat this up. And what's going to happen with this, well, you just saw it spit that out. And it'll walk right out of there. And that's all there is to it. Now, since I have this torch out, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the braze that's on this I need to clean up. I don't have to worry about this because I'm going to cut this off. But I do want to clean up these 4 spots along here. So, come back in a second. Okay, I'm back. Got my paper towel, bell, cool enough to handle. Heat up these spots. Wipe it off. There's a lot of solder on these spots right here. I kind of think when they made these horns, they used the paste solder and they just loaded it up. Because these things always spew out a lot. Cool it back down some. You can see it spreads when you try to clean it off. So there'll be a little work to do when we get to that point. Keep working your way down the bell. This will save a lot of aggravation after you start to clean up the bell. One more here. More here. Okay, and like I said, I'm not going to worry about that spot right there because we're going to cut that off. I'm going to let this cool for a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I've found in the past, after letting this cool down a little bit, I can work with it, is to cut 1.5 inches off of this length, which is off the length of the bell, which aids in tuning this up to a C. So I'm going to lay this out, mark it, get my cutter set, make sure it's going in a circle. It's going to be like the tuning slide where you're not going to be able to go just quite all the way around, but very close enough to it that we can work with that. So I'll be back with you in a second after I get that set. 1.5 inches. Okay, I've got the cutter set on 1.5 inches. And I go back and forth around. It's going to be like the tuning slide where you're going to have an obstruction in the middle of your turn, but not too much pressure. Just keep it working around, slowly tightening it down. You'll hear it start to crack. Oh, and the bell tail area right here is a little bit thicker than the slides, so it takes a little more time to cut it. I heard it crack once. That's good. A little more snug. again, you're going to have that little section that did not cut, just like on the tune and slide. Just wiggle it back and forth, and it'll come right off. So now we're going to clean this up with the file and the sandpaper and the little piece that's on the back of the cutting tool. A little bit of burr there. Nothing the file can't handle. So it was a little rough around the edge. So I did take that Dremel tool and work on it a little bit. And it's pretty flat now. A little brushing with the file. Looks pretty flat, it's hitting all the way around. So I'm going to take the sandpaper and the steel wool, work on it a little bit. Okay, I spent some time, burred the tail, made sure it fit back into the ferrule on the end, and I made sure it went all the way as deep as it could, because I actually am going to see how well in tune the horn is on a C and a G and an E. Right now, anything I can play without the valves being depressed. So that means I have to put the valves back in it. So give me a minute and I'll have the valves back in it. And we'll check to see how well in tune it is. Just so you know, I'm not going to just pop the valves in before I check and make sure that the valve casings are clean. Cannot tell you how important this is. Scarring one of those valves or valve casings is pretty serious. So you need to take a minute to make sure that that's not going to happen. Alright, so I got it together with the mouthpiece. Notice how I'm grabbing it across the valve section right here. I want to hold tension on the bell because when it's brazed, it's going to have tension on it. And I'm looking at the tuner to see what we have. Most everything looks like it's running sharp, which is good because I want a little bit of room to pull out on the slide when it's time. And as we tension up on the bell, it's going to run sharper. I can hold more tension on it now. So we're doing good right now. That amount seems to be a good amount. It's what I've run across before, just double checking to make sure I'm right. Okay, so I'll pull the valves back out. I need to clean up these braces before I try to solder the bell back into place. It fit well in the ferrule. So I'm going to clean these two up, let them cool back down, and then we'll put the flux on it and put the bell back on. Use the heat to clean them up a little bit. I have my wet paper towel here. Be still. Okay, we'll let that cool for a second. Then we'll put some, well, actually I need to clean up the belt a little bit before I put it back on. So I'm going to do some sand and then steel wool into these things. Work on getting those off. Alright, a little steel wool, sandpaper, knock that right off. Alright, so I'm ready to put this thing back together now. Nice. In there as far as it'll go. Now, one thing you're going to notice when you put it back together, these things have a little bit of a gap. So what I started doing, looking at it, this could stand it. Since there's a gap there, I take this little wooden mallet, actually it's a leather head. Leather head mallet and roll the edge in. On both of these things, and what will end up happening, just tapping them around, being the corners. When I put this back on and I put pressure on it, they'll form to the radius of the bell. So notice at first they don't fit now, but when I put pressure, I can work them into fitting. Working them in, get them to sit into there. They're very malleable, so it's not going to take much to get them to act right. And that's just about right. A little more on this one to count for the taper. Now, these are secondary, of course, to this fitting in here, right? So I'm going to make sure when I put it together, getting hot, I'm sorry, that it's all the way up in there. We need flux. Flux this, and this. Yeah, with that flux on it, that little bit of lubrication from that flux, pop that sucker right into place. So, we're now ready to solder. And it looks pretty squared up. Nothing major. So, if you set the bell on the table with the horn, it should level itself up pretty good. I got one little place I'm not happy with right here. And yes, I am bending that with a pencil. Like I said, it doesn't take much for that stuff. Alright, I got the bell tail